you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah. Come on.
Today, I'm excited to sit down and spend some time in this format with one of my best friends on the planet. He's like a brother to me, and he has constantly been an example of consistency and proving that if you can stay consistent and dedicated to something, you can get to wherever you're trying to go. And today I want to introduce to you Cameron Bawden. He is the CEO of Green Mango Pest Control, as well as the owner of a few other different companies that we'll dive into. And he's created something really great. Pest control in the state of Arizona specifically is very heavily saturated. And to start it in the time that he did and have it evolve into what it has been really great. I've been there every step of the way and seeing what he's created, and I'm excited to dive a little bit more into it. The purpose of this podcast, A Million Ways to Make $1 Million, I hope to give people a sense of, confidence and a sense of hope if they're looking to create something, and to show different ways how people have got to where they've wanted to go. And I'm excited to introduce Cameron Bawden. Thanks for being here today, man.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cam, it's fair to say, unless I missed something, but you and I have been through a lot together from the standpoint of connecting at an early age. We started dating our wives at a similar time, got married at a similar time, a month apart. And I have never known you to have a W-2 job. I don't think you ever had that. And you really, it never occurred for me that aligned for you to go out and work for somebody else. And one of my earliest memories of you in like a professional setting is you converting your truck into a mobile car wash detail center. And like we hit the ground running. Do you care to dive into like a little bit of your mindset, whether that's how you grew up or when you discovered that creating your own business was going to be the path for you?
Yeah, man, I laugh because I have a carpet cleaning business, coconut cleaning, right? And I joke with my partner, Evan, that I'm a third generation carpet cleaner because my grandpa, he still cleans carpets in Utah right now. Like if you go to Utah right now, he's probably put spraying protectant on someone's couch, and he's like 85 years old. My mom did it while she was growing up, and then I happened to start a carpet cleaning business. And Evan hates when I say it because I've probably cleaned like 2 rooms of carpet. And the closest thing that I had to a job was helping out my uncle when I was 17. He would clean the universities of Phoenix, and I would go help him like throw chairs up on the desks, and he would come through and clean the carpet.
And so you're third.
I'm third generation carpet cleaner, bro.
All right.
You didn't know that. You're my best friend. You didn't know that.
I didn't know that. No, I did not know that. And I will throw that on the resume.
Thanks,
whenever
man.
I introduce you to somebody that you're third generation. Like tell a little bit of.
Well, to answer your question, so especially with our upbringing in, Gilbert, Arizona, my whole life was mapped out. You go to school, you go to high school. For me, my dad, hey, go get your licenses in aviation. I went to do that. Go on your mission. Some people go to college and then start their career. When I got home from my mission, it was the loneliest time of my life because I knew I didn't want to go to college. I went, there's a funny story about that. I don't know if I've shared that with you either. I go to let's see. What's the one on Pecos and Higley? Canyon State? It's not Grand Canyon.
No, that's the ASU campus, like their East campus on Higley.
There's one on Higley and Pecos or something. Anyways, I'm sitting in the counselor's line. Chandler Gilbert.
Okay, so yeah, Gilbert. Yeah, okay.
Chandler Gilbert. Everyone's saying, hey, you either start a career or you go to college. I'm so confused, bro. It's the first time in my life I don't know where to go next. 21 years old. I didn't really have, this is before I met you, I really didn't have any friends because the friends that I did have were either on their missions or the friends I had before high school were kind of in a place where I shouldn't go hang out with them. And so like I was lonely, man. The only friend I had was Ryan Hatch. He already got engaged. I was so pissed at him. But people are like, go to college or start a career. I go to college and I'm standing in the counselor's line and I just get like sick to my stomach. I'm like, this is not the place I need to be. And I dipped out. I went into the parking lot, bro. And I just remember sitting there like, this sucks.
And so you never registered for a class?
Never registered, never did. I made it in the building and then I dipped. That's as close as I came.
All right. And now what? How do you go and tell that to your family or whoever you might tell that to? Or did anyone even know you were
No
going
one
to go
really
do that?
cared. I don't think anyone ever really knew that I did that. So I'm sitting there. I'm like, man, what can I do? Had a couple $1,000 saved up. I'm like, I can clean cars. Like, let's go clean cars, man. And so I bought a little trailer, started a mobile detailing company, and ran that for a summer. Dusty came back from summer sales. I was like, hey, if you want to be rich? And I was like, yeah, I want to be rich. Of course I want to be rich. He's like, pest control. That's how you become rich. I'm like, screw you, man. You want to call this company Green Mango? Like, that's the funniest name I've ever heard in my life. Well, that happened for like 2 months, back and forth. And Dusty stayed persistent and going to get the licenses, going to, file the business license and all that stuff. And he just kept like, Dusty's the greatest salesman you've ever met. He eventually talked me into it. I sold my mobile detailing company, bought Liz, my wife, her ring with that money, had $5,000 left in my bank account, and bought a pest control rig to put in the truck that my dad gave me when I got home from my mission. That was the green stick shift truck.
I remember that truck. So what thoughts are going through your mind when you're going to start a business that you've never had any involvement in? And now, I guess like spraying a route and spraying a car down might give like somewhat, and apparently this pedigree that you have of being third generation and,
It's a big
cleaning,
deal.
like what's the mindset around going and starting a company that, at least how I remember, you have zero experience in?
I didn't know, but luckily, as I look back and as I've learned different principles, there's this principle, 7 habits of highly effective people. The first principle is ready, fire, aim. Not ready, aim, fire, but ready, fire, aim. And that's what I did. And I didn't know it, but Dusty and I didn't have an office. We didn't have any office staff. We didn't have a CRM. We didn't even have a computer. Dusty knew how to sell. I was a hard worker. Let's go. That was it.
Yeah. And what,
And
Yeah, I know. I saw it. And so now, fast forward, I mean, we've got to be close to 14 years. Yeah. What were some of the, one, I'd love to hear both sides of that. One, you should go ready, fire, aim. And 2, I would probably advise somebody to maybe do X, Y, or Z a little bit more.
Well, I could talk on that for hours, man. Where do you want me to go down?
Well, one, I would like to hear a little bit of like the growing pains of, we got a company open, just as bootstrap as it can be with the, like you said, getting the licenses, building your first rig.
Yeah.
Like, who built that?
Yeah. So Dusty's first truck that he brought to the table didn't have an airbag in it because we couldn't afford it. Dusty, I think, was living in his truck at the time. I spent my last money on putting a rig into the truck, which our chemical provider at the time offered that service, luckily, because we didn't know anything about it. And they threw a rig in it. But yeah, I mean, we have all the painful stories. I mean, there was months where we didn't bill our customers because we were running them off of spreadsheets. We didn't have a CRM. And, that could sink your company if you're not bringing any revenue in. We were the technician, we were the sales manager, we were the office staff, we were the collections agency, we were everything. And we stayed on the truck for 5 years. And that was one of the greatest things that we did, but also one of the biggest mistakes we made, because we just couldn't work on the business. We were just so ingrained in it. But as soon as we started hiring people, as soon as we started putting managers into place, that's when we could start working on the business.
You're telling me you were spraying routes still 5 years
Absolutely.
after the company started?
Yeah.
Like, you personally?
Both Dusty and myself, yes.
Wow. And
I would imagine like this show is all about entrepreneurs starting up, right? Or successful people. And so what I would say to that is a year prior, so let's call it around year 4, we're like, hey, we don't want to spray any more routes. Well, guess what? Someone calls out, there's a route scheduled. Okay, we'll go spray it. That kept happening for a year. It wasn't until finally we looked at the person that was finally doing our office. We're like, hey, we're not a technician. We're never spraying again. Figure out how to fill that route, but never call us again. It took that like hard line. And I see that, and I bring that up because I meet with a lot of people that are in the grind that we were and that we are. And they say, hey, I want to get off the truck, but it needs to be like a clean break. I don't know how to do that. You can't look at me as a technician.
Yeah. And so 5 years of being every piece of the business, I remember, and this might not be right around the same timeline, that you started working more on yourself than anything else. Like, I remember that there was a big uptick in like how you were taking care of your body and this fitness journey you started. You went and got a personal like business or life coach to spend time working on you. Like, or did those correlate, or was that right around the same timeline, or was that something you were able to start working on once you drew that line in the sand and said, hey, I'm going to work more on me and the business and not so much in it, every day as a tech?
Yeah, so we started in 2010. 2015 is when we kind of got off the truck, when we first started to take money from Green Mango. We didn't take any money for the first 5 to 6 years. And 2018 is when I hired my coach, because at that time we had opened up 5 other service companies, and like my life was just, I didn't know what day it was.
Yeah. From somebody that was looking to like just start a business, like imagine the 21-year-old version of you that just heard we didn't take any money from Green Mango, how like that doesn't correlate. Like, wait, what do you mean? Like, how did you live if you didn't take any money? You care to dive into that? I love that.
No, for sure. So luckily, I needed a little incentive to go on my mission, and my dad was like, hey, you go on a mission. When you get home, I'll buy you a truck, the nicest truck. At the time, the nicest truck was a 4-door to me, GMC or Silverado, $60,000 to $65,000.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I'll go on a mission for a truck,
All right.
I got home and he's like, hey, you want to go get your truck or you want the money? And I was like, dang. My brother-in-law, Kim, at the time was finding all these little houses out in Phoenix. And I can barely call them houses. Like, these things are sheds. But I could buy 2 houses for about $60,000. And it provided one gave me $1,200 in rent a month, and the other gave me about $700 to $750. So I lived off the $1,900 from my rentals for the first 5 years. And then Liz, she would teach dance at night. I think she was making, $25 an hour. So maybe we made $2,500, $3,000 as a couple. So that's how we lived.
Yeah, I remember the Malibu.
I had a salvage title Malibu.
Yeah.
My good old father-in-law, who I love so much.
Yeah. And your partner, Dusty, at the time, I remember him, like, he was living at the office.
Yeah.
Like, there was a futon in the, like, what you would call the reception area.
So embarrassing,
he would
man.
do that and then go to the gym, and, like, that's where he would, like, shower and stuff like that.
We're like saying, hey, we're a premium company. We do everything the right way. And then we'd come in for a tech meeting in the morning, and Dusty would be passed out on the floor because he'd been up since 3 a.m. like doing marketing material. Like, what's premium about this, man?
Yeah.
It was rough.
Golden key. Well, go back to there. I don't love focusing on maybe like what some would say regret. But if there were some things that you could have focused on earlier in that first 5 years, going back and giving advice to yourself, what would you touch on?
As a business owner, I've now found the importance of a chief financial officer. Like, that's everything to me. That's one of the first hires, which I understand that comes at a premium cost, but he can let you know, he can let you know where you're going wrong. At the time, we would analyze our business once a year and say, okay, let's change this next year. Now with a confident, proper CFO, we're literally making day-by-day decisions and changes, which has been absolutely phenomenal. And then KPIs, key performance indicators. Not only is that refreshing for you as a business owner, but your people need to know what those are so that they know where to focus their efforts and what to focus on.
Yeah. Do you think that somebody could bootstrap that effort in a way of like, using like a service that provides a CFO or, whatever it may be in the meantime until you could afford that? Or do you think it's like, figure it out, get somebody that their full-time job is there? Like, do you have anything about that?
Yeah, so we bootstrapped it by having good accountants, and there's other people out there that will, take on your services, but they're not going to give you that real-time data. But it's better than nothing. And so even if you were making quarterly decisions, which you can afford, anyone can afford, or they should be able to carve out a budget for that, it's going to change their lives. We didn't have that until honestly like 2 years ago, 11 years in. And as I look back on like regrets, bad moves, like that was one of them.
Yeah. Take us through a little bit of the journey of the stereotypical pest control model and where you've evolved today. And I bring that up because today, you mentioned that Dusty had gone out and sold previously, and that's where this concept of like, hey, do you want to make a lot of money? It's in bugs, it's in pest control.
Yeah.
And the typical model would be to hire a big sales force, recruit a sales force to go out, knock doors, door-to-door sales, and acquire accounts. And then you build a business and retain as much of that as possible.
Yeah.
And then go through a cycle of which typically tended to be in the summer months.
Yep.
And I remember you guys gave a crack at that and you hosted different events to recruit and go through that process. But then there was a period that it changed. And to my knowledge, I don't know of another privately owned pest control company that has grown the way that you guys have, what I would call organically, without a sales force. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition or cracking that code into the scale that you guys were able to hit from that, maybe that 5 or 7 year mark on to what it's become today?
Yeah, so it's about 3.5, 4 years in where we've been running these summer sales programs. And it's exhausting. Anyone that's been a part of summer sales or recruited for summer sales, the accounts suck because the salesman's saying whatever they can at the door to acquire that customer. And then each summer, like everyone's going after your sales reps. And when you're trying to run an entire business, it's hard to wine and dine them, make them feel validated, run the office, run the technicians, run the billing, all those things, which is what we were doing. We were just horrible at it. And so we were in a position to where it was almost like, I remember, I tell the story that I was in Maricopa. I was on a 3-way call. My dad's invested into Green Mango, right? I'm on a 3-way call with my dad and Dusty, and I'm in the backyard in Maricopa, 115 degrees. And I'm like, if someone would give us $225,000 for this company right now, I'll sell it to them because that's what we owed my dad. Like, I just wanted to pay my dad back. I had the burden of that. My dad wasn't putting the pressure on me, but I had that pressure from, whatever. I didn't want my dad to lose money on me. And I was like, if someone can pay my dad back, like I'll walk away from it. I don't know how people make money at this.
Yeah.
At that time, we had a couple big breaks, one of them being John Jay and Rich. And I'd say that was the gateway into our traditional marketing journey. A quick story about that. We had a friend call us and say, hey, John Jay has a bunch of ants at his house, and his bug guy told me they can't come out for another 2 days. Like, you need to get out there and like, wow this guy. Dusty goes out and just becomes best friends with him. They talk about everything from religion to, sports, pests, dogs. John Jay's doing his love pup thing, and he just hit it off. And the next day, John Jay goes on, and with the radio, there's the advertising spots that they try and make it sound natural, but then there's a portion of the radio each day where they're just talking about whatever's going on in their life or whatever events happening to, really connect with people on a personal level. John Jay goes off for like 3.5, 4 minutes about Green Mango and about this Dusty guy and how we're the best. And he plugs our number. And I don't remember the exact amount of sales, but it was like, I want to say it was like 20 sales in one day. And for us, that was like in order for us to get a 20-day it was really difficult. Like 10 or 12 we were happy with. And John Jay gets on and runs his mouth and we land 20 sales in one day. We didn't have the money, but we signed the radio contract for 20 grand a month. And I just remember doing the math. Okay, I got to sell this many at this much for the initial. And like for probably like the first year, like we just kept scraping by barely enough to pay the 20 grand each month. And we just started to build, and slowly we started to pull back the door team and invest into other, ways of traditional marketing, Google, Facebook, all that stuff. But it all started with the radio. And now we haven't ran a door team besides when we've opened up new markets. We haven't ran a door team in Arizona for probably 10 years, 11 years now. So it's crazy.
Wow. That's there's so many things I want to touch on there. And I want to go back to a couple of things you said because it crosses over with my world a little bit. But you mentioned that you took on an investor.
Yeah.
You took on an investor from day one?
No, it was like 6 months in. We wanted to run a door program, and you have to have capital up front. So we originally took on 60 grand. Of course, it turned into more money because we didn't know what the heck we were doing,
Yeah.
And, it's 60 grand for 5%. And then, it ended up being a total of 225 grand, and he owns 20% of Green Mango.
Wow. Well, it's probably fair to say that's he's not too mad at that investment and that return.
It was stressful for me. And I remember, there was a time where we needed some more trucks because we were growing, and we needed like 5 grand as a down payment for these 2 trucks. I remember going back to my dad, and I was like, hey, and I was mad at him because I was like, hey, we need more money for more trucks. Like, this is a good thing. He's like, I'm done handing you more money. Like, I'm done. It's over. And I don't know how I got the money, but we scrounged up 5 grand somehow, bought 2 more. They were Kia Souls. And I remember going back to him, and he's like, I'm proud of you for figuring it out. And I'm like, what? Like, you're supposed to be there to help me like with this money. But he cut it off. And that was like a hard conversation. I remember being a little angry with him at that time. Yeah. It's like, dude, we're growing. This is a good thing. I'm literally scraping by to pay rent. And like, you're going to try and suffocate us right now.
Yeah. So taking on, there's obviously pressure that comes on with taking on an investment or an investor.
Yeah.
And I know that you guys have chose to do that in the beginning. You look to expand more in the end. And I think that it's fair to say that you're still looking to expand.
Yeah.
For anyone that feels like, hey, I feel like an investment up front would streamline our process or mitigate some risks in some form, what would you say to that person that was choosing to organically just like, hey, we're going to figure it out and it might be a slower pace, or the benefits of taking on capital or finding a form of capital that has a $60,000 to $250,000 range or something like that?
If I could go back, we took $225,000. I think if we were running a clean operation, that we probably would have only needed 100 to 120. Like I said, there's many months where we fell off a rotation. So when you fall off a rotation, if you're supposed to service a customer every 2 months, so 6 times a year, but you fall off a rotation and you only service them 5 times a year, like that's one service of, at the time, $65 times however many customers you have. Like that adds up a lot. That could make the difference. That could be the difference between you being profitable that year and not. And so, to answer your question with taking on investment, you need to make sure that you have a solid CRM in place. You need to make sure that you have your KPIs outlined, and then you're ready for some type of capital. Whether you take on a lot or a little, that's up to you and your comfort zone of where you're wanting to go and how fast you're wanting to scale. But you need to kind of have those basics down before you take on cash. We didn't have those down, and so we wasted a lot of money.
And so advice could look like taking some more time and planning out the route prior to and putting some of those key people in places. Yeah, but that goes back to like the ready, fire, aim.
Don't get lost in, I got to know everything perfectly, because that's not what I'm saying, but at least have a decent base.
Yeah. Well, Cam, I've seen all sides of it. I've been a customer. I've been there from a friend standpoint when times were tough or hard. And I've also seen what you've created now and the life that it's provided.
Yeah.
I think that what I would say is that a lot of it has to do with more so of who you are being as a person and what you set out to create and the will to get through. We've done some things together, and I mentioned previously, but like the transformation of how you chose to treat your body and what you've done with that and your healthy lifestyle that you've
That all
evolved into.
started with you, right?
Oh, I remember. I wasn't going to bring it up, but I remember specifically what it was.
I mean, a little short story for those that don't know. I think I was getting a haircut in my in-laws' garage.
Yeah.
I had my shirt off, and you come up to me and you grab my stomach, my belly, and you called it a tummy.
Yeah.
You're like, "What's this? Little tummy?" And I'm like, "Dude, that freaking pisses me off."
Yeah. I thought, well, you call somebody's stomach, if they've got abs, their stomach. And if they're overweight, you call it a belly. Right. And if you're just a little chubby, it's a little tummy, man. And you had a little tummy.
It's messed up, man.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that.
Yeah, you've changed. Well, the reason I bring that up, I've seen you push yourself consistently. I think it goes back to a lot of, some of the things that you want in life, but we did an Ironman together, and what you did around that training was consistent. And if I had one word to describe you, it would be consistent.
Yeah, I appreciate
I don't
that.
feel like you missed 2 days in a row of anything. And I've seen what that's created. I've seen the life that it's created for you. Going to somebody, Joe Rogan talks about the difference between motivation and determination. Like, let me rephrase that. Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can remember his quote. But he says something along the lines of, forget motivation, you need discipline. Mm-hmm. That's what he talks about. And you're one of the most disciplined people I know. Can you speak on the journey of, as a theme, times get tough, it's dark, you're doing whatever's necessary to keep the business afloat, to just getting it over the hump and to turning it into something real and something that's now a staple in the valley where we live?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that's been a huge thing for me, to be considered as someone that's consistent. And, accountability is probably from a young age, and how I was, brought up to being accountable. And I'm just a big believer that if you find, I refer to it, and I train my people on a rhythm now. So, everyone has rhythms for whatever way in their life. I tell a story of Liz. She has a rhythm. It's the craziest thing to me. When she wakes up, a lot of people go straight to the bathroom before they do anything. She goes and starts brushing her hair. Then she'll go to the bathroom. Then she'll come back and brush her teeth, and then she'll go out. It's a rhythm that she does every single day, no matter what. And so I've created, in areas where I was weak. So in 2018, when I balance will, one of my weakest numbers was health and fitness. And so when I decided to focus on health and fitness, I started to create rhythms for myself. And then after you do them for a while, they become sacred. And when they become sacred, nothing gets in the way. And that's what I encourage, the people that I work with and anyone that I talk to is, if you're wanting to get better at something, make those rhythms become sacred to you. And if you do them every single day, it's just going to make all the difference for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think around that time, you were so open to feedback and fine-tuning that will that you're describing. Insert a business coach, right? Or a life coach. I don't know what you would call Mark, but I remember getting a phone call from somebody that I didn't know who he was. He introduced himself, and he said, I'm going to be spending some time with Cameron. And how I remember his question would be like, it was similar to, if you could push Cameron to, improve in certain areas, like what would you do, or what would you, from how does it occur for you that I could help Cameron improve in his life? And it was it was really on the spot of all right, well, I want to help Cameron, but like if
Yeah.
I say X, Y, or Z, how could that be taken? But I think it was easy to say because that was what you were seeking. You were
Yeah.
seeking improvement. You were seeking upgrade, and you got some guidance there. And I've just seen it's been really amazing to see Green Mango and or Cameron Bawden and all the surrounding things that have touched get over this hump in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's been cool to see.
I appreciate that.
What would, you know, I think that there's a lot of access to coaches and guidance today.
Yeah.
Could you speak on what having one-on-one time with the intention of improving yourself, or just that mentality of improvement, if you were to lend any sort of guidance to somebody that might be considering that right now?
You know, for me, it was the best decision I ever made because I didn't have, like we started out, I didn't go to college. I didn't, I didn't work for anyone else. I was just on this journey of like building a business. And so I had to be open, and it took me, I remember in 2000, so when it started with Mark was 2018, I called my dad one night and I was just like, something's missing in my life. I feel just empty, like just something's missing. He said, you need to start coaching with Mark. And the next day I was at lunch with Mark, and, Mark's over 100 grand a year, 4 hours a month, 1 hour a week, 100 grand it was 10 grand a month, 120 grand a year. The first thing that he brought up was the balance wheel. And I was just like, okay, I'm paying this guy all this money. He refers to this like free thing that you can get online, a balance wheel. But he dove in and he talked about ego. And I didn't know what that was. I was the big guy making good money at the time. And, I thought that I didn't have an ego, and he jumped in about what that means. And so I think the greatest thing was my dad telling me like, hey, you need to be coachable. And I think I was open to the ideas, but you have to hear it in a different way. I don't know if you remember the thing that you told Mark that you wished would change about me, but no one ever told me that. One of your things was like, hey, when we're playing basketball, a dumb game, and it's out or a foul, like Cameron will fight you to the death if he believes he's right. But he won't have an open mind like, hey, what if it did go off of him last? Like, you need to be in a certain place. And so Mark framed things in a way where I would be open to hear it. And so it all starts with being open to feedback. And it was like I said, it was the greatest thing that I ever did as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I love that. I love it. You created this balance wheel, and it makes sense. It's fair to say that I don't know many people that play as hard as you and work as hard as you. And
I got to make up for my jump shot, bro.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in life, Cam, for those of you who don't know, he's trained and licensed in aviation, both fixed wing. He has a helicopter. You're a helicopter owner. You've got a houseboat. You've got I'd call it a sand truck. Don't let me.
It's a sand truck.
It's a sand truck, but it's a Lamborghini on the dunes, and dirt bike and every toy that there is, and you play.
Yeah.
But you've created a business from there. I think that a lot of people might say that you might need to choose one or the other, and it's just never occurred for me that you've had that mindset of, yeah, like work first, play later. Like I'm just going to do both and make it work. Has that affected the trajectory of what's going on? Does that give you the energy to perform in the business world when you can go and do the things that you enjoy and take time off? Or do you have anything about that?
Well, a lot of people talk about how in order to build a business, you have to have an unbalanced life. And that was certainly me. But one of the things that I learned, and this is a shocker to everyone that I tell, the principle that Mark taught me was that it's better to have, so you on the balance wheel, you rate yourself 0 to 10 in like 8 or 9 different categories. There's a bunch of different wheels out there. Some of them have 6 different categories. Some of them have 9, but you rate yourself. Mark taught me that it's better to have a 3 all the way around than have a 9 here, a 6 here, a 2 here, because then you're unbalanced. So it's better to just, even if you're at a 3, a piece of crap in most of them, that's better than being great at 1 or 2 things.
Now that you've created a business that's provided additional income, this is some of my favorite stuff to talk about in the investment world.
Yeah.
What do you have planned to do with the money that you've generated? I've seen what you've done so far, and you've done everything that you've ever told me you were going to do. You know, you built your dream house.
Yeah.
You have all the toys. You know, you come from here. What are some of your plans or your strategy around now that we've created a business that's creating all the supplemental income? What is your decision with that? Are you the put it all back into your business, and you personally, have you thought about anything beyond that yet? What's your plans moving forward now that you've created a business that's producing this much cash flow?
Yeah, so I'm on a 5-year plan. My goal is to build it to sell it for $200 million in the next 5 years, and I'm putting everything back into it. And what I'll do with my money at that point, I'm not sure, but I'm focusing on that.
Yeah. Are there things that distract you at times, you know, financially, that like, has there been a constant of like, man, this just keeps pulling at me, or this would, you know, I get tempted in this area or whatever it may be?
My whole goal and why I got my aviation licenses in high school was that I wanted to come home from my mission and do real estate like my dad. But I got home in 2009 and the market was just trash. So I've always had this interest. The temptation is to invest into, rental properties or, large scale properties. My father-in-law is a huge, land guy in the valley. He's always tempting me with deals. So that would be like my biggest temptations probably.
Yeah. Have you, in this plan to go to that, like, let me see if I can phrase this in a way that would make the most sense. Right now, is there any doubt in your mind that there could give you any greater return anywhere else than in yourself or in your business right now?
No.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I feel is a common theme as I'm spending more time with people that have gone a similar route of entrepreneurship, is that, man, I know what I can produce.
Yeah.
I know that if I invest in myself or in what we've created, that this is my greatest return. And it's a little bit of a mentality of like, yeah, like I'm going to bet on myself and, take it or leave it. Give me, before we wrap up, if you could, staying on the topic of investing or finances, could you give me one thing that you've pulled the trigger on, spending wise or investment wise or whatever it may be, one thing that you're, man, I'm glad I did that. It was a risk. I didn't know if I should. And 2, like, yeah, if I went back, I probably wouldn't do that over again. And that could be internal inside of your company or whatever it may be, a spend. That could be personally that you've done, but just like, I've had to write a check. You've mentioned the investment into the advertising, the $20,000 and the return that provided. But like, maybe on the more personal topic, like a spend that you've really pulled the trigger on and you're like, man, I'm glad that worked out.
Well, got a little greedy in 2020, 2021. Everyone was getting heavy into stocks. We had a good buddy, won't say his name, but he thought he's like this stock king. And he was giving all these tips and tricks. And I put $750,000 into a SPAC company and watched it drop $50,000 every day for like 8 days in a row. And that was probably like the hardest time of my life. And I haven't opened up the app since, man.
Well,
we had a couple great wins to lead up to that.
Yeah.
But that was like the last one.
Is it fair to say that the theme of that would be, putting something into money that you didn't know much about?
I didn't know anything about it. It was out of my control. And when I woke up every single morning and watched it drop, like, you don't know if it's going to rebound. You feel helpless, and I hate that. And that's why I love being an entrepreneur, is that you're going to have a ton of lows. But if you can pull yourself up and create those rhythms and get out of this low, 2019, as I look back in my life, I was at my lowest low as an entrepreneur. But it was the year I made the most money. It's the craziest thing to date, right? And so I always think about the quote that people say, overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And so when I look at my 5-year plan, I love it. And when I look at how much debt I've paid off, where I've come in just the past since 2019 and my lowest low only 4 years ago, it seems like an entire different lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to bet on myself for the next 5 years. And I'm sure I'll do dumb stuff again in a few years, but I want to put everything back into myself. I have that number. And most importantly, like, I need to be okay with that number because, last October, we were offered this huge amount for Green Mango. And I turned it down right away, which if you would have told me I could have turned down that amount when I started in 2010, I would have told you I'll take that all day long. So I didn't want to get 5 years down the road, have this number and be like, oh, I think I can get, 300 for it now or 250. And then it's never enough. And so I'm really playing that game of like being grateful, but also like knowing what I can achieve. And then once I achieve it, be happy with it and, dip out.
Yeah. Finish off on that same theme of somebody they're opening the doors or the, so to speak, doors of their company. You guys started your company without having an office or anything like that. In the first year, to get through that first year of entrepreneurship, one piece of advice you'd send somebody off with?
You need to have a great support system. You talk about how I'm your best friend, you're my best friend, you're always there, and could bring a different perspective, but also you could hold me accountable. And then you need to surround yourself with people that are like-minded. That's the biggest thing. I grew up with the saying, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. That couldn't be more true when you're starting a company. If you have people in your corner doubting you, calling you an idiot, telling you you're wasting your time, you're going to buy into that. If you have people in your corner saying, hey, you got this, keep pushing, I love what you're doing, how can I help, what can I do, you're going to win. And you just need to stay consistent. Like, it's a grind. It's going to be a grind. And I hate that word grind, but it's going to be a lot of work. Yeah. And just be ready for it.
Yeah. Cam, I love hearing you say that as not only a friend, a fan, the evolution of now I've had the opportunity to invest in what you've built and are creating.
Yeah.
I could say that honestly, before I ever saw any of the numbers or what a return could look like, that my decision was made on who am I investing in. And if I could have anyone hear anything from our time together, is to continue to focus on who you're being and how you are living on a consistent basis, and could be the main thing that gets you to where you're trying to go. And I hope people hear that. I hope people, if they're looking to advance in their current career, if they're looking to make a leap into entrepreneurship, if they're making a decision between college or getting a job or whatever it may be, that if they could take some of the principles that you've built your life on and being consistent, being disciplined, being decisive, being a good person, that the rest could take care of itself. Man, I can't wait to see what the next 5 years, brings for you. And I'm excited to be, a part of it in any way that it allows. And thanks for spending the time and sharing your story, man. We appreciate you.
Appreciate all your support over the years.
Yeah.
Daddy, you sure you know what you're doing?